This is China. This is also China. What happened? This woman is the answer. But before I get into the video, my name is Blackie, and if it's the first time this channel, please subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell for more knowledge-rich content like this one. What are you waiting for? Subscribe for God's sake. Here we go. Let's get started. In April 1960, China's first homegrown electronic computer, the Model 107, went live. Peisu, the machine's engineer and designer, had just made history. After decades of World Japan and the Chinese Civil War in the first half of the 20th century, the country's technological innovation had fallen behind much of the developed world. Later caught in the politics of the Cold War, the newly established People's Republic of China was cut off from aid and exports from capitalist nations in the West. Chinese scientists relied heavily on hardware and expertise from the Soviet Union to build up their computing power. And as they say, calamities do not come individually. After the cutoff from aid and exports from capitalist nations in the West, the relationship between China and Soviet Union dissolved in 1959. China was once again isolated and it had to look inward for a way forward in an increasingly computerized world. Within a year of the Soviet Union withdrawing aid, Shah delivered the 107, China's first step on the road to independence in computing. Today, China is a global leader in computer production. In 2011, China surpassed the United States to become the world's leading market for PCs. And the desktop PC segment of their computer industry alone is projected to bring in a revenue of over $6.4 billion this year. But there was more work to be done than making computers. To build a new computer industry and a new field of computer science to support that industry, China needed trained personnel. Here, a Wonder Woman rose. Peisu was the backbone in this plan. She helped shape some of China's first computing and computer science institutions and developed their training materials. She taught the first computer theory class in the country. Over her career, she would usher hundreds of students into the country's burgeoning field of computer science. Shah's influence resonates through China's computing world today. Born into a family of educators in the southeastern municipality of Chongqing on the 28th of July 1923. Shah really went without an education. She was basically well taught. China was in the throes of the Second Sino-Japanese War, an 8-year conflict that ravaged China and claimed the lives of millions of Chinese civilians. At the war's onset in 1937, the Japanese captured Nanjing, the capital city of the Republic of China. Shah's home of Chongqing became a haven for Nanjing refugees. It also became home to National Central University, an institution that, despite forced relocation from Nanjing, kept teaching students. In 1941, Shah joined as a student in electrical engineering. Shah graduated with a bachelor degree in electrical engineering in 1945. In 1947, Shah moved to Scotland to study for her doctorate in electrical engineering at the University of Edinburgh. In her dissertation, she developed methodologies that helped us in radios, TV, and computers. In 1950, she was awarded her PhD and got married to Yang Liming, who was a professor too, both scientifically minded and deeply invested in putting those minds to work in their home country. The couple returned to China in 1951. They both took up positions at Tsinghua University, where Shah worked in telecommunications research. You may be asking now, why are you talking so much about this scientist, Shah? Well, here's the thing. Shah was the secret for China's revolution in computer science. She's something big, very, very big. She's the past, present, and future for China. She's the reason how China managed to come this far. So let's continue. As I said earlier, Shah returned to China with her husband from Scotland. But the China that Xi and Yang returned to, however, was a changed one. In 1949, the Chinese Communist Party (CCP) had prevailed over the Chinese Nationalist Party in the Chinese Civil War, which made China's economy, industry, and infrastructure languishing and lagging behind many Western nations. The Second Sino-Japanese War hit the country particularly hard. When the CCP came to power, they attempted to rebuild the lost infrastructure, but it wasn't easy. The US had supported the defeated Chinese Nationalist Party in the Chinese Civil War, and they, along with other capitalist nations in the West, denied the newly formed communist country assistance and exports. Mao and the CCP turned to their Soviet neighbors to the north, seeing an opportunity to bring China into the communist bloc in the east. The Soviet Union entered into a partnership with China, agreeing to assist China in bolstering its economy, science, and technology, including computing. In 1953, a mathematician called Hua Lu-jing visited Cha at work and recruited her into his computer research group at the Chinese Academy of Sciences, CAS. The CAS would become ground zero for computing technology and research, and Cha would become at its center. The CCP and the CAS identified computing technology as one of 4 fields in science and technology key to building up China's national defense, including development and testing of nuclear weapons, management of large-scale complex transportation systems, and development of a satellite program or space program. All of these things and more were domains in which other powers, the Soviet Union, the United States, Great Britain, and later France, were developing electronic computing in support of, and China knew that it needed to be able to enter the space if it was going to become competitive on the global stage, economically and militarily, so they needed that computer so bad to make China rise. However, China had a long way to go before they could produce a computer. For one, rather than having a single field of computer science, the industry's fundamental parts were spread out over mathematics, engineering, and physics. These would need to be consolidated and then taught to a workforce before a computer could be built. With her knowledge of electronics and mathematics, Xia was an ideal choice for this part of the plan too. In 1956, Xia joined a delegation to Moscow and Leningrad to explore Soviet research, production, and education in computing. When she returned that same year, she undertook the translation of Soviet computer design from Russian into Chinese, including a 1,000-page manual that became the course text for teaching Chinese students Soviet computing. Xia was involved in developing the computer science courses at both institutions, university and the CAS, and as a course developer and lecturer, she oversaw the training of hundreds of students between 1956 and 1962. By 1959, China had succeeded in replicating 2 Soviet electronic computer designs, the 103 model and the 104 models, each based on the Soviet M3 and BESM2 computers, respectively. But just as China began making progress in producing computers, the Sino-Soviet relationship was in dissolution. The two countries' leaders sparred over whose nation was the center of the communist world and whose path to global communism was the right one. The relationship had become so bad by 1960 that the Soviet Union withdrew all support, both material and advisorial, from China. After the Soviets withdrew, many other countries assumed that China's computing industry just stopped. It didn't. CAS researchers continued to pursue computing technology and computer science on their own. Cha's 107 model was the first computer that China developed after Soviet withdrawal, and unlike the 103 and 104 models based on Soviet design, the 107 was the first indigenously designed and developed computer in China. The 107 was soon reproduced and installed in training institutions around China. Throughout the 1960s, China continued to develop more powerful and sophisticated computers at the CAS in isolation. When a delegation of US computer scientists visited China in 1972, they didn't expect to find China's computer industry humming along. All of the members of that delegation, in the few testimonials we have, all express surprise at how far China had come. Throughout this time, Shah continued a balance of research and development in high processing speed computers and training new computer scientists and engineers. In 1978, Shah helped found the Chinese Journal of Computers as well as the Journal of Computer Science and Technology, the first English language journal for computing in the country. And in 1981, she developed a high-speed processor array called the 150AP, compared to the earlier Soviet-based model, the 104, that performed 10,000 operations per second. Her 150AP boosted a computer's operation to 20 million per second. Although her design of the 107 made history, it was Shah's founding of institutions and cultivation of cohort after cohort of students that ultimately made China's future. While the world thought that China is dead, China rose from under the rubble and proved that determination can defeat blockade and lack of resources. From two destructive wars that demolished everything in the country, infrastructure, education, industry sector, but not the people's dream, and that's what matters eventually. On the other hand, ask people to imagine a scientist, and many of us will picture the same thing: a heterosexual white male. Historically, a number of challenges have made it much more difficult for those who don't fit that stereotype to enter fields like science, math, or engineering. There are, however, many individuals from diverse backgrounds who have shaped our understanding of life and the universe, but whose stories have gone untold until now. That's how China became a technology giant, a woman who made an entire nation great without speaking a word about the work she accomplished. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something from it. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to hit the like button, share it with your friends or family, and let me know what you think about this in the comment section. Take care, until next time. Bye bye.